If someone tells you the rent is cheap, just don't open the room upstairs. Most people would ask why. I didn't, and that mistake still wakes me up at night. This happened in 2021. I had just moved to a small town for work. I needed a place fast. Money was tight. That's when I found an old, two-story house. One bedroom downstairs, one locked room upstairs. The landlady only said one thing: "You can live here, just don't use the upstairs room." I didn't question it. The first few days were normal. Quiet neighborhood, clean room, nothing unusual. But every night, exactly at 2:17 a.m., I would wake up. No nightmare, no noise, just wide awake. On the seventh night, 2:17 a.m. again, but this time, I heard footsteps above me, slow, heavy, like someone walking barefoot. I sat up immediately. Then I remembered, no one lived upstairs. The next morning, I checked. At the top of the stairs was a wooden door, thick lock, covered in dust. It hadn't been opened in months. That night, 2:17 a.m., footsteps again, then something new. A dragging sound, like someone pulling themselves across the floor. My hands started sweating. Then I heard it. A voice from upstairs, low, dry, old. "Who's downstairs?" I covered my mouth, afraid even my breathing could be heard. 5 minutes passed. Complete silence. Then, something fell on the stairs, and suddenly, the light in my room turned on by itself. I slowly looked at the door, because under it, I saw a shadow, moving, coming closer, opening low, tense tone. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed sitting on the bed, eyes locked on the door, waiting for that shadow to come back. But it didn't. At 6:03 a.m., sunlight finally entered the room, and for the first time since moving in, I felt safe enough to breathe. Later that morning, I confronted the landlady. I told her everything. The footsteps, the voice, the shadow. She didn't look shocked. She looked angry. Her face went pale, then stiff. She asked only one question. "Did you answer it?" I said no. Her shoulders dropped in relief. Then she whispered, "Good." She went inside her room and came back with an old key. Rusty, heavy. She placed it on the table like it weighed too much, and said, "This key hasn't been used in 3 years." My stomach tightened. We climbed the stairs together. Every step creaked. The air felt colder. With each step upward, she unlocked the door. The smell hit first. A mix of dust, mold, and something rotten. The room was empty. No bed, no furniture, except for one thing. A thin mattress on the floor, stained dark in places, and scratched walls. Long, uneven scratches, like fingernails. Near the mattress, there were drag marks, leading from the mattress to the stairs, and stopping exactly at the door. The landlady couldn't look anymore. She turned away. She finally told me the truth. An old man used to live there, alone, quiet, no family. He stayed in that upstairs room for years, until one night, the neighbors heard screams. By the time police arrived, they found him dead, on that mattress. Cause of death? Unknown. She lowered her voice. After his death, tenants started complaining. Footsteps at night. A voice asking questions. Lights turning on by themselves. And always, 2:17 a.m., the exact time, the old man was declared dead. Then she looked straight at me. "You're the first one who heard him speak." My throat went dry. She continued. He only talks when someone stays too long. She told me to leave immediately. No notice, no refund, just leave. Before 2:17 a.m. came again, when the voice spoke behind me. I didn't turn around, because I knew if I saw it again, I wouldn't be able to leave. My phone screen lit up. 1:58 a.m. For minutes before 2:17, the house was completely silent. No footsteps, no creaking, just my breathing. Too loud, too fast. I grabbed my bag and rushed to the front door, unlocked it, pulled. Nothing. I pulled again. The handle moved, but the door didn't open. It felt held from the other side. Then I heard it. Not upstairs, not behind me, right next to my ear. You opened the door. The voice wasn't old anymore. It sounded normal, like mine. I didn't want to look, but my eyes drifted to the mirror near the door, and that's when I saw it. Not standing behind me, standing inside me. My reflection was smiling. I wasn't. The landlady had lied. The old man didn't die alone. Police records later confirmed it. He wasn't the first. He was the last. Every tenant before him had stayed too long. Every one of them had heard the voice, and every one of them had disappeared. At 2:17 a.m., the house chooses, stay, or become part of it. I don't remember opening the door. I don't remember running. I only remember collapsing outside, on the road. At 2:18 a.m., the house lights turned off behind me. Every single one. The police came. The house was searched. The upstairs room was empty. No mattress, no stains, no scratches, like it had never existed. The landlady was gone. So was the house. Within a week, it was demolished. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Every night since then, at 2:17 a.m., my phone lights up. No notification, no call, just the screen. And sometimes, in the reflection, I see myself smiling. Final line, long pause before. Don't want you to visit. They want you to stay. This wasn't a haunted mansion. No abandoned place. No isolated location. This house was in a busy neighborhood. And yet, no one in that house slept at night. This happened in 2020. I was staying for a few months at a relative's house through a friend. The house was old, but well maintained. 2 floors, 4 rooms. Nothing unusual. At least, that's what I thought. On the very first night, I noticed something odd. There were no clocks in the house. Not on the walls. Not on tables. Nothing. I asked, "Why don't you keep a clock?" The owner didn't answer. He just said, "We don't need one." Around 11:30 p.m., the entire house went quiet. TV off. Lights dimmed. Everyone went to their rooms. But something felt wrong. No one was asleep. I lay on the bed, eyes closed. That's when I felt it. Like something was listening to me. I turned to my side. The feeling stayed, as if the walls were counting my breaths. At around 12:47 a.m., I heard a soft sound. Tap-a-tap, like fingers knocking on a wall. I sat up. The sound came again. This time, from the wall, right next to my bed. I opened my door. Everyone else was already standing outside their rooms. Their faces were pale. One of them whispered, "It started early tonight." I asked, "What started?" No one answered. An elderly woman finally said, "If you hear anything, don't reply. That's when I noticed something. There were no windows on any of the walls, no airflow, no outside noise, and yet it felt like something was moving inside the walls. Suddenly, from that same wall, a quiet voice spoke. "You're new." My entire body froze, because I had never told anyone my name. At that exact moment, every light in the house turned off at once. In the darkness, one voice echoed, "Stay awake now." No one went back to their rooms after that. We stood there, in the dark hallway, listening, waiting, as if the house itself was deciding who it would speak to next. Someone finally spoke. A man in his late 40s said, "We don't keep clocks, because time doesn't move normally here." I thought it was a joke. He shook his head. "When night begins in this house, it doesn't end until it's done with you." At night, the walls would change, not visually, but the sound. Soft scraping, slow movement, like something shifting position. Always just behind the plaster, always listening. The elderly woman spoke again. Her voice was steady, like she had told this story before. Years ago, a family lived there. Their youngest son started hearing voices from the walls. At first, they thought it was imagination. Then he started answering. The boy would whisper back, ask questions, laugh. Within weeks, he stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. He started standing, facing the wall at night, just listening. One morning, he was gone. No broken doors, no windows, just his room, and the wall behind his bed, slightly warm. After that incident, the house changed. People learned, if you sleep, you answer without knowing. If you answer, it learns you. It doesn't want bodies. It wants attention, awareness, recognition. Once it knows you're there, it doesn't stop. The man listed them quietly. Never respond. Never sleep. Never ask questions. Never mark time. And most important, never let it know you're afraid. I asked, "When does it stop?" The room went silent. The elderly woman finally said, "It doesn't stop. It just waits until you forget the rules." As she finished speaking, I felt it. A light pressure against the wall behind me, and a whisper so close it touched my skin. "You're listening." The whisper didn't come from the wall. It came from inside my head. That's when I understood something important. The house wasn't speaking. It was listening. The truth came out just before dawn. Decades ago, the land didn't have a house. It had a temporary shelter, built during a regional disaster, to hold displaced families. Too many people, too little space. People slept against walls, cried against them, prayed against them, and some died against them. When the permanent house was built later, the builder followed an old belief. If you seal suffering inside walls, it won't escape. So the inner walls were made thick. No windows, no vents, just layers. Layers that trapped sound, emotion, fear. Over time, those things didn't disappear. They compressed. Awareness without a body. A presence that only existed when noticed. That's why it spoke. That's why it learned voices. That's why it hated silence. Years ago, a man tried to prove it wasn't real. He slept at night, alone. By morning, he was alive, but he never spoke again. Never blinked normally. Never slept again. He lived another 6 months, standing near walls, listening, until his heart stopped. Sleep lowers resistance. The house doesn't need permission. It only needs access. And sleep opens the door. As morning light finally appeared, the pressure on the walls faded. The sounds stopped. Everyone sat down. For the first time. Exhausted. Alive. At 7:12 a.m. Someone whispered, "It's done." Leaving the house. I left that day. No arguments. No goodbyes. I never returned. Months later, I learned the house was sealed. No demolition. No renovation. Just locked. I thought distance meant safety. I was wrong. Even now, if I lie awake too long, I hear it. Not words, just attention. That feeling, that something knows. I'm conscious. Because some houses aren't haunted, they're aware. No one screamed in this house. No one ran. No one panicked. In this house, fear didn't attack. It replaced things. The first thing it took was your name. This happened in 2018. Someone I knew was sent to another city for a government-related job. He needed a place for 3 months and ended up staying as a paying guest in an old house, small house, quiet neighborhood, very cheap rent. But there was one strange rule. Never tell anyone in this house your full name. At first, he thought it was a joke, but then he noticed something. There were 4 people living there, and no one ever called anyone by their full name. Everyone used short names, nicknames, incomplete names, like the rest of the name didn't exist. The first night passed quietly. But the next morning, there was a missed call on his phone. Unknown number. The voicemail had only one line. "I didn't hear your name clearly." He assumed it was a wrong call. Later that day, at a nearby shop, the shopkeeper looked at him and said, "You're the one who came last night, right?" He froze. He hadn't gone out the previous night. That night, he went into the bathroom. Everything looked normal, but when he turned the light off and then back on, there was writing on the mirror, like it had been traced with a finger through steam. It said, "Say your full name." He confronted the others. The room went silent. Finally, one of them said, "If the house learns your full name, it replaces you." That same person explained. Every night at exactly 12:33 a.m., something inside the house changes names. No one knows how. All they know is, by morning, someone isn't the same anymore. That night, at exactly 12:33 a.m., he heard whispers from every room at once. Full name, and then his phone rang. The caller ID displayed his full name. After that call, no one went back to sleep. We all sat in the living room, lights on, phones in our hands, pretending the night would end faster that way. It didn't. One of the residents finally spoke. "The house listens first," he said. "Then it practices." I asked what that meant. He looked at me and replied, "It repeats your name until it sounds right." They explained something important. The house doesn't take faces. It doesn't take bodies. It takes identity. Once it learns your full name, it can speak as you. And once it can do that, you start to fade. There used to be a 5th person, a man who stayed longer than the rest. One night, he accidentally said his full name while talking on the phone. Nothing happened immediately. That was the worst part. Over the next few days, his behavior changed. He stopped responding when people called him. He started answering when they didn't. Sometimes, he'd introduce himself using a slightly different name. 1 letter off, then 2. One night, he stood in front of the bathroom mirror for almost an hour. When someone asked what he was doing, he said, "Trying to remember which one is mine." One morning, his room was empty. No luggage, no signs of struggle, but written on the inside of his door, in deep scratches, were words repeated again and again. "That's not my name." They told me the rule. If the house finishes learning your name, it doesn't need you anymore. That's when people disappear, and the house keeps the name. The calls get closer. My phone vibrated. No call, no message, just my name, appearing on the lock screen, spelled correctly, for the first time. Then I heard it, not from the walls, not from the phone, from my own mouth, a whisper I didn't make. "That's me." When I heard my own voice say, "That's me," I finally understood the truth. The house wasn't stealing names. It was collecting replacements. The house wasn't always a house. Decades earlier, the building was used as a temporary records office. Government files, identity papers, birth certificates, death records. Thousands of names passed through those walls. Some files were never claimed. Some people were never found. Some identities were left unfinished. When the office shut down, the building was sold cheaply, converted into a residence. But the name stayed. Over time, something formed. Not a ghost, not a spirit, a pattern. The house learned that names mean existence. If it could say a name perfectly, it could remember a person. If it remembered a person long enough, it could replace them. Short names aren't enough. Nicknames fade. Only a full name anchors a person completely. That's why the house kept asking. That's why it practiced. That's why it whispered. One of the residents finally told me the last rule. If you hear your full name, spoken in your own voice, don't answer, because the moment you respond, the house knows. You accept it. At 12:33 a.m., my phone rang again. Caller ID, my full name. I didn't answer. The walls began to vibrate softly, like breathing. Then the voice came again. Perfect. Clear. Mine. You forgot who you are. I spoke out loud for the first time. Not my name. Just one sentence. I know who I am. The house went silent. At sunrise, I left. No one stopped me. No doors locked. No whispers followed. The others stayed. They always do. Months later, I looked up the house. Officially, no one lives there now, but people nearby say, mail still arrives. Different names, same address. Even today, if I get a call from an unknown number and there's silence on the line, I don't say hello, because sometimes you don't lose your name. Your name finds you, and once something knows who you are, it never forgets.